Nigerians have constantly expressed concern over the rising incidence of petroleum product trucks accidents, the spillage and explosions on the roads. They have also implored the federal government to initiate measures to stem the trend and address the catastrophic disasters periodically inflicted on Nigerians at every occurrence. Joining us to discuss this is a public commentator, Nelson Ekujumi. Good morning, Nelson. Glad to have you join us this morning. All right, Nelson, I'm sure you can hear me. Why are these trucks still plying our roads in this day and time? Should there be not be a law, really, banning these trucks from plying our roads, especially at the times that they do?
Well, thank you very much. I think the reasons why the trucks are still on the road is due to the fact that the agencies charged with the responsibility of ensuring, enforcement of standards are failed in their responsibilities. A lot of times you go on our roads, you see tankers, you see containerized trucks and what have you, and you know that this is an accident waiting to happen. You don't have to be a prophet to know that, this truck is not in good shape. A lot of those trucks don't have headlights if they are moving in the night. You look at the tires, the tires are all worn out. You look at even the smoke that the vehicles are emitting. You see some emitting, fireballs. And, these and so many other things tells you clearly that agencies of state that are supposed to ensure that only roadworthy vehicles and, properly maintained trucks are on the road are not performing their responsibilities. Because for a tanker to go to the petroleum depots to lift maybe 33 or whatever liters of fuel and, to go on the road, it means, anybody or in any responsible society, people should know that, look, this type of vehicle is conveying highly inflammable material. And the consequences of that vehicle having a spillage or breaking down or, having problems on the road. So what the first thing we should do is to ensure that the standards are kept, that when they come into the depot, is there the arm of that agency saddled with the responsibility of, enforcing standards, as this vehicle be verified as being fit to move product from point A to point B. And if we continue to see these accidents on our roads, then it means that those agencies are not doing what they are supposed to do. So that tells us that we need to sit down and really address this problem because it is not rocket science.
I think you've touched on a few really important issues there. Vehicles need to be roadworthy, but the roads that these vehicles are on also have to be of a certain standard. If you were to designate areas of blame, where would you put the more blame on? Would it be the drivers and how they operate the vehicles, or would it be the roads and the poor quality of them? Which one is more important in this instance?
Well, I want to go biblical in response to your question, and it is that we have all sinned and come short of the glory of God. In this case, we are all culpable. You look at the drivers. A lot of times I go on the roads and I see drivers of these articulated trucks. And you ask yourself, is this boy qualified to drive? You see drivers who will drop from the vehicle and go somewhere to sleep, giving the vehicle to the motor boy, the assistant, who has no driving license. You can imagine the risk of putting a kid. Because a lot of times if you go on the road, I navigate the Apapa Port Road very well. You need to see the physical appearance of these drivers. You know that definitely the likelihood of this person having a driver's license or having passed through a driving school is almost nil. So in that case, it tells you that it is not only the road that are faulty. Even if the roads are faulty, the man behind the wheels, is he qualified to drive? Does he know the responsibility entrusted in his shoulders by moving an articulated truck? The answer is definitely no. So in as much as the state has also failed in its part, in maintaining the roads, in making sure the roads is motorable, the vehicles that are on the roads themselves are not roadworthy. The persons behind the wheels, a lot of times, are people who have become highly, intoxicated by whatever substance. So nobody is like, it's a banana republic. Nobody is checking any other. There's no enforcement of standards. There's no measurement of, say, this person is qualified to, that, it should be saddled with this responsibility. So that is why we are in this mess, unless and until we do the rightful thing, which is very easy for us to ensure that trucks going to the depots or the trucks on our roads are motorable trucks, that the persons behind the wheel is free of alcohol or other drugs, that the person behind the wheel has a valid driver's license, and the driver's license is up to date, that the vehicle itself is licensed and the vehicle, is fit to move product from point A. Because even when you see some of those trucks, please try and observe closely. You won't be able to identify the registration number. A lot of times the driver will take the registration plate number and put it inside the truck. Ordinarily, the vehicle registration number is supposed to be the identifying symbol of the vehicle, that this is vehicle XY dash or whatever. But in this case, even the vehicles, they have no trafficators, they have no other lights that could, warn other road users about the presence of these vehicles on the road. So for me, I don't think it's about blaming one of the stakeholders and leaving out the rest of believing that one is contributing more to the problem, but it's a collective failure on our part. That is the way I saw it.
Oh, well, listen, I was actually smiling. You're very observant. Not even just the trucks, even the buses. Sometimes you see buses and the back glasses, not the windscreen now, is covered with sellotape.
The real window.
Indy,
You don't have...
Indy, let me shock you. There was a day I was on the road in the night about 7:30 p.m. Can you imagine a driver of a truck using torchlights and driving like this? Because there's no traffic, there's no headlamp. And you look at some of these trucks, the rear lights are no longer existing. The frontal view of the trucks, you see that the fender holding a headlight on this side is totally off. At times, if you are not careful, if you're on the road, when those trucks are coming, you assume erroneously that this is an Okada, maybe putting on a big light. You won't, because that vehicle will be having just one headlamp. So you can imagine the danger it poses to the society when a vehicle is coming and innocently of you, the pedestrian or commuter on the road, you assume that this is not a vehicle. This must be a motorcycle. So these are the dangers we are
very risky
exposed to ourselves to regularly.
Yeah, Nelson, you took. I was still going somewhere because you're boxing a lot of things together. So what I'm trying to do here, what we're trying to do, is make sure we break them down. You talked about not blaming. At some point in time, somebody has to take responsibility. Definitely. Somebody has to get the flag, so that things can work fine. Now, let's look at this issue of roadworthiness. In a more encompassing way. These trucks, are there conscious, comprehensive efforts at making sure that adequate safety standards, are adhered to and maintained over time? And then I just read a piece this morning as I was preparing for this program that in fact there is a claim that most of these trucks imported from Europe are not even roadworthy.
Well, that is the truth. That the biggest blame in this case, if I want to change from my earlier stance, is that the government has failed with regards to enforcing standard, because that is the responsibility of the state. The vehicles come into Nigeria, and you need to ask who ensures that those vehicles are vehicles that are compliant with our environment, with our roads, with our system here. I don't think anybody is doing that. Practically, I think if anybody is doing that, they are doing it theoretically, and that is why we have seen a lot of mishap on our road. So the responsibility for this failure lies majorly with the government, because the government is supposed to ensure that standards are kept, and when standards are kept, then the government will be fulfilling its primary responsibility of the security of lives and property of its citizens. And if any government fails to do that, you and I definitely know that government, has failed in its primary responsibility.
Both at the federal and the state levels.
Definitely, definitely. You have the Federal Road Safety Commission, that is to ensure that all vehicles on the federal roads are roadworthy. You have the State Ministry of Transportation, and they have, agencies started with that responsibility. We call one the vehicle inspection officers, vehicle inspection service. You want to ask, what are they doing? A lot of times you see them on the road, they don't even bother going after those trucks to ensure because, they rather go for the man driving a car, because they believe, maybe for some of us in the public domain, they see the truck drivers as, these ones, they cannot be apprehended. If you apprehend them, you are only wasting your time, and it shouldn't be so. They should be more concerned with the effect of, the activities of every vehicle on our roads.
Well, thank you so much for the answer. We are going to prepare ourselves to take a very short break, and we will continue when we're back, Nelson, about this issue. When we do come back, I will talk to you about what you think needs to be done in terms of the division of power, but we will take a short break. Please do stay with us. Well, welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We've been talking about something very important, the state of our roads, but in addition, the drivers of subworthy or not roadworthy cars that are transporting oil materials and the continued instances of crashes, of leaks and deaths associated with that. Here to discuss that with us is a public commentator, Nelson Ekujumi. Nelson, thank you for staying with us. I wanted to talk to you about what needs to be done. I hate to ask guests to imagine a perfect scenario and apply it to Nigeria because it's difficult, but I would think that with so many agencies on the roads, people who are there to make sure that traffic flows properly, that drivers are licensed and insured, why do we still have instances where things are continuing to fall through the cracks? LASMA are still there harassing drivers whenever there needs to be. So when you see a car that is visibly not roadworthy, why isn't there the need for you to pull the driver aside, ask him to step out of the vehicle and impound it because you feel as though the risks far outweigh any type of reward they need to transport it? Why aren't people more proactive in protecting the roads and the people on them?
Well, I think the major problem with regards to ensuring that vehicles that are not roadworthy are off our road is due to corruption. A lot of times, the officers in charge are not really concerned about ensuring the enforcement of standards. Rather, they are more concerned about what they can get for themselves, and that is what has put us in this mess. But going further, I think what we need to do in order to avoid, this recurring decimal is for us to ensure that there is a involvement of all the stakeholders. By this, I mean the owners of the trucks as well as the drivers' unions and what have you. Because a lot of times you see a tanker driver brings a truck from, say, Kaduna or Kano State. And, the owner of the truck will be in Nigeria, or it could be outside Nigeria. So you are relating with the driver who now becomes owner. But in this case, where you have a situation whereby the officers are only interested in what they can get through, corruption, you continue to see this recurring decimal. So there's also the need for the government to ensure that, there's a periodic, roadworthiness certificate that should be issued to these trucks, as well as these drivers, that this driver is qualified to drive within maybe six months periodic review. Also, the owners of petroleum depots should also be sanctioned. For you to fill a 33,000 liters of petrol tanker with petrol, and knowing fully well that that vehicle is not up to standard, means you should also be held culpable as an accessory to whatever be the consequences in the negative sense. In that way, a lot of these trucks owners will now be forced to ensure that their trucks are roadworthy, because then you know that your truck is going somewhere to leave product. And if the truck has not met up to standard, that truck will not be allowed to leave that product. Then you have no choice. But when it becomes a situation whereby once you go there, whether your truck has just one tire out of four tires, the depots are not concerned. All they are concerned is the commercial activities that they want to engage in. Then we'll continue to have this mess. When we make sure that every stakeholder has a price to pay, if the driver is found to have taken drugs, is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, at the steering is made to face the penalty. The trucks, if the truck is not roadworthy, the government should confiscate the truck and ensure that, look, unless you come and put this truck in order, we will not allow this truck to be on the road. And while the truck is in the custody of the government, or whatever agency the government wants to give it to, the truck will be paying for daily demorages. Maybe that will also drive the owners of the trucks. As well as also, like my last point I said earlier, the depot or maybe the ports, the terminals where the trucks are going, once the trucks comes in, there should be those agencies saddled with ensuring that you have a current certificate. Because if I just say the officers on ground should be checking those certificates, it's a room for corrupt practices. But the only responsibility the officers on ground should have is to verify the certificate you have. Because you cannot take away the manipulative tendencies of human beings. Before you know it, if you are issuing certificate, some person somewhere will sit down and be manufacturing their own certificate as though it's the original one.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed, Nelson, a very good point there. The question is, are these truck owners, are they bigger than the government? Why are they not being brought to take responsibility for quite good points you raised there, because people should be able at every turn be able to take responsibility considering the eventual outcome of these accidents. Let's evaluate, Nelson, the economic implications of these accidents. The loss of goods, for one, the gridlock that arises when these accidents occur, and then the houses and vehicles burnt, in some cases with no insurance at all. And then, of course, the roads are affected. The roads are already bad. So let's look at, evaluate the economic implications of these accidents.
The economic implication, cannot be imagined. It is unquantifiable. But by and large, our response to our roads, the traffic, the transportation system is a reflection of the way we live our lives. You see somebody go out there because he had seen Mr. A or Alaji X or Chief Z having one truck. From one truck, the man graduates to having 10 trucks. He will just rush to go and buy trucks. He doesn't care about the maintenance services. He doesn't care about the garages. That is why you go on our roads, you see the trucks, they have turned the roads to garages. They have turned the roads to parking lots. Right in the middle of the road, you see mechanics lifting out engines of trucks and, effecting repairs there. You see the menace the trucks have turned our state to, have turned the roads into. So in this case, I think it is the responsibility of the state majorly, because the state is the one that controls the affairs of all citizens. So I don't think the owners of the trucks are bigger than the state. It is just an act of irresponsibility by those saddled with managing our affairs. There's nothing more to say about it, because if I've been saddled with the responsibility that involves the primary responsibility of government, the primary duty of government, which is the safety of its citizens. And if the government, has now created an agency or an arm of the government to carry out that job, I don't think it is too much to ensure that that job is done thoroughly. Because if an accident occurs, it will not differentiate between one ethnic origin or social class or standard. Look, the loss we go through because of this accident, it is because of our nature. A lot of times, most of the houses, most of the vehicles don't have insurance papers. Ordinarily, we should be filing for claims. Maybe that would drive, a sense of responsibility into the minds of those managing our affairs. If people come out and say, look, 20 vehicles were burnt or 50 vehicles were burnt, we are taking the state to court, because the accidents occurred on the state-managed roads. Maybe that will drive, and when the courts are able to dispense justice appropriately and dispassionately, and with the urgency of time, maybe that will drive, a sense of responsibility into the minds of those, managing our affairs.
Nelson, we've spent so much time talking about where the responsibility should lie, the problem with the vehicles, the problem with the drivers, the problem with the agencies who aren't doing what they need to do. But if we were to look at remedies, for example, what do you think can be done, should be done to resolve these issues so that we don't see a continued reoccurrence of these crashes on the road?
Yes, what I think should be done to remedy the situation, like I have said earlier on, is that all the stakeholders must be made to pay a price. Also, we should encourage our citizens as well. We should educate them, to be able to assert their rights. And, I think this is a responsibility for the Nigerian Bar Association if they want to come in here, because that is one way to hold government accountable. A lot of times, government agencies in their failure to play their role as enshrined in the Constitution have caused a lot of havoc. And nobody is brought to book. If the commissioner or the minister, is charged to court, is sued, and the government agency itself is sued, with the avalanche of cases, it will have, for me, I believe it will have a stain on the credibility of such a government. And I'm very, very sure that no individual or government wants, to be tarnished with the brush of a credibility crisis. So we must encourage a lot of our people, to do the needful when these accidents occur. Maybe that if the government is feeling its responsibility, maybe that will be what we need to wake them up from that slumber. But as it is, as we speak right now, the situation is still the same. So one of the means we are going to do that is through mediums like this, when we educate and sensitize our people, and also encourage government to always have interactive sessions with the stakeholders in that industry. In that way, they'll be able to fashion out solutions to the myriad of problems bedeviling in that sector of our lives.
All right, next thing, still along those lines, the mode of transporting heavy haulage items or goods using trucks, I mean, is this really the best way to go? Can't we begin to think of alternative ways of transporting, these heavy products instead of using trucks?
Yes, I think that for that we must give a big kudos to the present administration. We have seen the present administration revitalizing the railway, system, because a lot of times we overburden the roads. The poor state of our roads is because of the volume of traffic on the roads. The only means of transportation in this country is majorly the road. So there is need for us to diversify such that we use the railway coaches or wagons to move some of these products. In that way, we'll be able to reduce the stress on our roads. We'll also be able to reduce the accidents on our road, because even moving them by rail does not, preclude the fact that there could be accidents. But that rails don't pass within residential buildings. We all know where rail tracks pass through. And in that case, if accidents should occur on the rail track, the effect of the accident will be minimal. So there's the urgent need for us to ensure that there's diversification of this product, of the movement of this product to other means of transportation. But majorly, we also must not take away the fact that for some places, because of the accessibility, we need the trucks. But those places where we have railway tracks lead, the railway system should be allowed, to perform that responsibility. Also, you need to ask, what is the problem with the petroleum depots outside Lagos? At a point in time in the life of this country, I remember we had so many depots, there was no need for the businessman who has invested in the petroleum haulage business, coming all the way from maybe Kaduna or Jigawa or Sokoto to come and leave petroleum product in Lagos. What is happening to the NNPC petroleum depot in Kaduna, or the one nearest to that geographical zone? So these are questions we should ask those who are saddled with managing our affairs, that a lot of times it is because of the responsibility of the state that has led us to this unmitigated disaster that regularly occurs.
All right, let me just drop this question briefly before we go. Kemi Bamibetos, this is what he said. It's time for us to find ways to ensure that tankers are driven by drivers who have more responsibility. Are our drivers trained and conditioned to drive these vehicles, and those responsible for making sure that they are, what are they doing? Briefly, very briefly, Nelson.
I can tell you for free, because in the last 1 year plus, I've been involved in that line of activity. It can never happen. I'm telling you realistically.
That's a very strong statement.
It can never happen. The irresponsibility in that sector is what pervades every other aspect of it. I've just given you I've been on the Apapa Port Road since May 22 last year. I'm still on that road. I monitor that road on a regular basis. The agencies started with that responsibility. If they should act without the buy-in of the unions, then we'll be looking forward to an industrial crisis, because all of them are culpable in this mess. I must be frank with you. Because you look, if a vehicle is on the road...
All right, we'll leave it there. I didn't like the fact that you said never, but I mean...
It's a tall order. Let me say. It's a tall order. Let me say this.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time there, Nelson.